In today's video, we're going to be focusing on Akani Simbine, the current world's fastest man with a 9.90, and won the bronze medal earlier this year in the World Indoor Championships. And the real question is this his year? Is this his season? He's 31 years old. He's been a top performer for a long period of time. We're going to be getting more in-depth into his sprinting mechanics, as well as talking about some of the races that he already participated in and is about to be participating in this weekend. Really excited for that. Earlier this week, he took on Letsile Tebogo, Christian Coleman, and the world indoor champion Jeremiah Azu, and was able to beat all of them. He has another race against Kishane Thompson, as well as all three of the previously mentioned athletes. And so it's really going to be a great test to see where he's at. And that's another thing that I want to get a little bit more into is he peaking too soon in the season? So as many of you guys know, the World Championships aren't until September, and so he already is looking really good. Akani Simbine is looking great in May or earlier in April as well, but is that peaking too early? So let's talk a little bit about the programming side of it with sprinting and get a little bit more depth into the technical parts of where I think Akani Simbine can improve. So we'll go ahead and get right into it here. So we got Akani Simbine on the left. This was a very interesting race. I'm going to go through it real quick. This is against Ferdinand Omanyala. This is when he actually ran the 9.90. This was earlier this week when he raced against Christian Coleman, Tebogo, again, Jeremiah Azu, had a lot of really great sprinters. Even Ferdinand Omanyala was in this race as well. And what stands out though is if we look at it, every single step that Ferdinand Omanyala and Simbine had was exactly at the same time. Like they have the exact same turnover speed, foot contact time. Like it was the entire way. You could see they were taking steps. I've never seen this before where two people just had like the exact same step count. We could see that Simbine ended up running in, he ended up not covering as much distance per step with Omanyala. So Simbine ended up, this is 46, and then this is his 47th step, where Ferdinand Omanyala, that's his 47th step. Ended up running 10 seconds in comparison to Simbine running the 9.90. And that's one of the things that stands out. You know, if we look into some of the top performers, then the 47 steps that he's currently taking is just not going to be enough. And again, in this one, he ran closer to, he ran like 9.99 here, almost 10 seconds. And so you can see just the difference between 9.90 is about 46 and a half, where this race, he finishes 47th step here is as he's crossing the line, or as he's touching the line, he hits it right at 47. So to me, the main thing that he's going to need to work on is picking up more distance per step. And where can he do that? I think there can be a lot to be made within the start, within the drive phase. I always think that's an important place to be able to look, to be able to determine how we can make improvements within the sprinting. So can we get a little bit more height with the knees? Can we get that toe to come all the way around instead of facing outwards? I think that helps with being able to create better horizontal force into the ground, makes it so we can get into a better shin angle here. And then he also ends up going in, kind of dropping that heel pretty early on within that drive phase. To me, it's going to be really that left side and being able to get the foot to come all the way up and through there. I know we didn't get a ton of great angles with it. When he gets to top speed, there's a lot of things that look really good. I really like where he's at with that left leg and how he gets all that extension as he's coming through and then striking the ground. His turnover speed's really good, 0.33. Great turnover. His foot contact time is fast, 0.08, 0.09. I do think, like when you look at Tyson Gay, he spent a little bit more time on the ground. Tyson Gay is 5'10". When he was running the 9.69, he spent about 0.1 second on the ground. So he's spending a little bit more time on the ground, had a very, very fast turnover speed, which is similar to what we're seeing with Simbine, who he's 5'9". So you want to be able to kind of get some comparisons there. And that made it so then Tyson Gay was able to run the 145 steps. So it just gives a little bit of an idea of like where he can maybe make some improvements. He had, an inch taller, shouldn't make it so you make that big of a difference when it comes to the amount of steps that you're taking. I definitely think getting closer to even sub 46 would help him a lot. 45 and a half, somewhere in there. If I was, coaching him, that would be the big focus. And with that, I would get a lot more into some of the things that are specific to rest and recovery, more of like an eccentric load, very technique focused within the training, gives them plenty of time to rest between events. And that's what's really worrying to me just by looking at this is, he had a whole indoor season. Obviously, like we said, he came in third in the World Indoor Championship. is already running 9.9s. Yeah, it's great. Beat Christian Coleman, beat Fernando Manyala, beat Jeremiah Zhu, beat Letsile Tebogo, the Olympic champion in the 200 meters. So, it's obviously he's not in a bad spot right now. But again, the question just becomes, is he peaking too early? And I think it'll show a lot this weekend with all of the great sprinters that he's going up against, especially with Kishane Thompson. The big thing to me, what to expect, is just going to be, is he going to be able to hold up against these guys? Like Letsile Tebogo and Christian Coleman raced earlier this week, and while Simbine won, I do think that it was just one of those things where Coleman and Tebogo were just trying to get a race under them before going and competing and potentially having a lot better showing going into this weekend. I would expect to see both of them run better times. And then also even with Kishane Thompson, who, at least in my opinion, is probably the favorite to win the World Championships this year in September. So having him in the race as well is just going to add more adrenaline to the entire thing. But I will say, if Simbine comes and runs a great time, to me, he's going to probably have to run sub 9.9 to be able to pull that off. But if he does do that, I think that really showcases that he is legit and going to be able to make a great case for later this year. But even if he doesn't win, I do think there's still so many things that he could work on that it still ends up being a great position for him to be in. It'll be interesting to see what Kishane Thompson does. I don't think that he's going to go and run any type of like personal best, amazing race or, setting world records, but it's hard to tell. We don't really know where he's at. Maybe he is in a lot better shape. He's trying to run, low 9.6s by the World Championship. So, if that ends up being the case, then maybe we can expect a lower 9.8 in this race. But to me, I don't think he's going to run anything great. I expect kind of like mid 9.9, maybe low 9.9. If he has a great start, maybe a little bit more into the 9.8, high 9.8s. And I wouldn't be surprised if like Coleman does something like that as well, into the lower 9.9s, higher 9.8s in this particular race after running low 10s in last week. So I think it's going to be a great test for really everybody. I'm very excited to be able to see what the result ends up being. But if I was coaching Simbine, I would put a big focus on the range of motion in the ankles. I do think as he's going through here, he can get more range in like the right leg. He's not getting as much out in front. He looks like he's a little bit weaker in that right hip flexor. Left side, he does a really good job maintaining height. I like the range of motion he gets out in front, and I like the foot strike. He doesn't get a ton of range in his ankle though when it comes to that front side mechanics, and that's why I say I would put a little bit more focus on that, both into the foot strike, working on plyos, working on the ability to strike the ground with a little bit more force. I do think that's going to help him out, because the better force production, then he's going to be able to cover more distance per step. Again, I just don't think he's going to be able to really accomplish what he wants to accomplish with 46.5 to 47 steps in the 100. He's going to have to get that down into really sub 46. So what can he do to be able to do that? If I was going to do any type of weight training, it would be much more of a eccentric type of a lift, even maybe controlling like a deadlift, things like that. Mostly focusing on just the lengthening of the muscles. And again, a big focus on the range of motion through the ankles, range of motion through the lower back, not doing a lot of stuff that is weight intensive outside of track. I'd put much more of a focus on, again, achieving better range of motion, and maybe even doing something like Pilates to help with the range of motion and the core strength, and emphasizing being able to rest, recover, get very technically sound on the track. So every time we're on the track, we're getting very specific into how many steps are we taking to get 20 meters? What is our 10-meter fly like when it comes to the amount of steps? The 20-meter fly, being able to really maximize that range and see from a technical perspective what can improve. Wouldn't be putting too much length into the sprints at this time. He should be in great shape already, so it's definitely not a how in shape are we type of a thing. It's going to be much more how can we get more power out of the steps is going to be the big focus. But yeah, I mean, that would be kind of the thought process behind some of the training there. Again, I'm really excited for this weekend and would love to hear what you guys think about some of this information. Kishane Thompson, what do you kind of expect from him? And also Christian Coleman, Letsile Tebogo, do you think that they're going to end up doing a lot better? And then with some of the training methodologies, what would you kind of think when it comes to the peak? And it's early May again, so the fact that Simbine is already running these great times, it could be a great sign. It could show that he's going to be able to run closer to maybe 9.7s later on this year. I hope that ends up being the case for him. And that he's not getting too much into high-level training too early on in the season. It's going to be a long season. Again, it's only May. The peak is going to be September. So that's why I think that Kishane Thompson, Letsile Tebogo, like they're all doing okay times. Letsile Tebogo a couple weeks ago ran 20.2 in the 200. So that's not an amazing time, obviously, but he won the race and he won it with ease. So it's one of those things where I think a lot of these guys are just preparing themselves, getting some races going to make it so then they can set up themselves to have a great time here when we go into run some great times when we come into the summer. So we'd love to hear your guys' opinions. You can leave that in the comments down below. Like and subscribe if you like the videos and want to get more videos. And then you could also check out some of our other breakdowns as well to see what we do within the YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.